Hi guys, AdderSnake here. How's it all going? Yes, and hello, and welcome to another Subject Sunday. And I apologise, this one's going to be a little bit late, and I also have to somewhat apologise for last week, but that's a little bit more political issues for why I did take down that video. But, hello and welcome to Subject Sunday, where this week's topic is talking about Destiny, and mainly sort of the changes that are coming in the April 12th update, but just general sort of where I kind of left off from Destiny and where it probably might start again to bring hopefully more videos on the channel about it. So, first of all, Destiny, that did originally come out in September of 2014, and I probably instantly fell in love with it. Very much so from liking the Borderlands series, where it was your shooter-looter kind of thing, as well as probably having a little bit of an affinity with Bungie liking the Halo series as well. Although I haven't really sort of played a lot of Halo games, but the gunplay was fun and just knowing how it all worked, and I kind of liked the sort of space exploration within the solar system that Destiny was trying to bring to that, and just how supposedly we needed to try and save our solar system in doing so. Uh, but yeah, I mean, for those who most certainly know, if you ever played Destiny within the first, oh goodness, 2 months of it being out, it didn't really critically do terribly well. Everyone was like, "Where's the story?" Because there literally was no story. Nothing was explained. There almost wasn't terribly much content to really sort of contend with, really. So it was kind of bland to start off with, and also the leveling game where you did actually have to level upon your gear and be lucky in regards to leveling up as well. Beyond level 20 to even consider doing things like the Vault of Glass. It made it a little bit convoluted, a little bit difficult to really sort of get into, but I understand trying not to make it easy and not trying to make you just waltz through the entire game straight away. But I saw potential in Destiny. I absolutely loved doing it, and ironically, the first time I ever did the Vault of Glass was on a hard mode, and managed to get my gold trophy for completing it on hard in the very first raid I did. But from there, I mean, probably because the fact it was a new game and I didn't really have much to play on my PS4 as well, I continued playing it till December when the very first expansion pack dropped, which was Dark Below. And again, that gave us a few more story missions. Again, didn't really sort of go into too much depth into the whole Destiny lore and how everything was working around Crota. But again, the main thing is that was bringing a new end game level, being Crota's End's raid. And that kind of tailed off not as quickly, but there was definitely a lull in between there and what was to be House of Wolves. And that's where, for what you're watching now, is the Prison of Elders gameplay, which then was the new end game where Skolas was the boss that you had to complete on a level, I believe, because it was level 34 was where they raised the level up. It was level 35 mission to do that. So doing that, it kind of wasn't a raid kind of level of excitement, getting all six of your buddies together to go through and do these challenging puzzles, to know what exactly to do to execute it in such a perfect manner. It was just horde mode. It wasn't exciting in the regard of, if there was any sort of objective, it was either sort of standing underneath a mine to dismantle it, or shooting at a mine to dismantle it, or killing a specific enemy, which wasn't difficult in the first instance either. But then again, I mean, it was something different to bring from Destiny. I mean, Bungie's kind of had the excitement from having Firefight, which was Halo's kind of version of a horde mode. But again, no one really explicitly probably said that that was the best ever. But I think the best probably horde mode that everyone sort of refers to is always Gears of War. But you kind of have your base building in between that as well, so you kind of a bit more tower defense in that regard, as opposed to just his enemies, kill them, shoot them. But beyond that, say there was most certainly a lull, because where House of Wolves actually released in May, there was nothing actually between then until September once again, when the Taken King was released. And fortunately enough, with the Taken King, there was quite a big resurgence in actually bringing the quality of the story and the telling of just like actual lore within the Destiny of how everything's progressing. So it made a lot of relevance back to Dark Below, because the new big bad enemy was Oryx, who is Crota's father, and just generally trying to track him down, to hunt him down, to kill him, because he was going to do big bad things in the world of Destiny. And yeah, that did engross me. I think I probably tailed off. I mean, granted, with work sort of pushing into sort of September period, is when we start doing more days at work, and I probably made less time for Destiny to play it. But I managed to play it a fair bit with all the spare time that I did have, and leveled it up quite quickly. And doing the raids again, Kingsfall is probably the most, wow, what's the best word for it? Probably the most vast raid that you have, just in sheer scale for what you do, and how it does finish off just watching Oryx just cascade back into Jupiter, is a pretty cool sight. But again, beyond that, Bungie doesn't seem to be pushing out these contents terribly quick. So kind of brings us to the subject now that although September, what's that, the 9th month in the year, about midway through when Taken King came through, we are, what are we, 7 months down the line, and now we're getting the next kind of bigger expansion update to the Destiny series. And will this probably force me back into playing it? Yeah, I'd probably imagine so. It's not the hugest update. It's definitely not an expansion, which I'm glad they're kind of saying it's just an update, not an expansion. Unfortunately enough, for those who have all the expansions with the Taken King as well, it's a free update. If you haven't done so, I mean, you literally just have to update and have all the content back to actually use this update. I believe they're calling it 2.2, and yeah, it's literally bringing a new end game in regards of the Challenge of the Elders, which is still just rebranding the Prison of Elders, but hopefully there's more bosses that they're planning to bring. Also, because of the Taken enemies, that was mainly what was come from the Taken King, is going to be a part of the Prison of Elders, and just a few extra parts as well. So yeah, main part of what you're actually going to be doing in the April update is going to be doing the new end game of the Challenge of Elders, which is supposedly going to drop up to level 335 light gear, so making your Guardian most powerful he's ever been. But there isn't many more avenues beyond that. They're kind of again forcing you to only play the one game mode to really progress further. They're not really doing much, saying with Kingsfall, which although it's a current raid to get good gear, I think, I can't remember if they necessarily quoted it, if it's 330 or 335 the gear's going to drop at now. I think they literally said from 320 to 330 for the hard raid. So I don't think you're going to be expecting like absolute end game to be the most powerful possible through actual Kingsfall. You're going to have to be playing the Prison of Elders. But I mean, slight changes to that is that you are going to be able to open the chest at the end of the Prison of Elders as many times as you want to, with completion. Well, I say as many times. You don't. I think you can use it once a week on each type, but you don't have to have your treasure keys to do that now, because otherwise you'd have to farm for those treasure keys. And for those who played with it just before the House of, well, I think it was just before House of Wolves came out, or at the time of House of Wolves, there were ways of cheesing the treasure keys from the drops in the normal, what do you call, I can't even remember what they call, but like the Cosmodrome, just the general Mars area. You go around and collect these just the loot chests, and sometimes they would drop a treasure key. Loads of people ended up stacking up those keys and being prepared for the Prison of Elders in that regard, but it just was another grind that wasn't necessary in that regard. So you get to open, and again, that gives you the chance of the 335 gear on the Challenge of Elders. And That seems to be kind of it for endgame kind of weapons. They did have their Ava stream, which they've got their final stream actually coming up this Wednesday, being Wednesday. I'm so bad with dates. I think it's Wednesday the 6th, and that's when they're actually going to dictate what extra bits are necessarily coming. So they've always mentioned. I mean, the first stream was just mentioned that Prison of Elders is going to be the main end game for what they're doing with all the new features with that, but also talking about what what Destiny's going to change as it physically looks. So the second stream, they were just literally talking about all the cosmetic gear that you're necessarily going to see and how it's going to look to change. With, I mean, most of the new armors they seem to be adding this thing called chroma, which is red, blue, white, and another color. It just completely escapes my mind. Which you can kind of modify your gear to look that little bit different. They're just showing like all the faction gears, like your new monarchy, which is typically a red color in most cases. But if you wanted to sort of make the accents pop, where it's kind of red and white, you can have a white chroma against that armor to just make it look different. And supposedly also with weapons, you can also add chromas to some of the weapons to just make them look a little bit more unique in that regard. So you don't look as mundane and the same as every other hunter, titan, and warlock on the in the game, really. But the main thing is, because I did absolutely fall in love with Destiny to start with. Is this necessarily going to be that big push to pull me back? Yeah, I believe it will bring me back. It will probably keep me entertained, maybe for about a month or two. I think a lot of the people in the Destiny community, for those who don't necessarily always play PvP, sort of your Crucible side of things, they aren't necessarily excited to continue um, sort of just doing the PvE side, so your player versus enemy. So I kind of very much fell in love with Destiny with the sort of story aspect. I wasn't really much in the competitive side of things to do all of your online, so your control, your skirmishes, things like that. It didn't necessarily interest me, but to continue to push my Guardian further, I mean, most of the time, PvE endgame for me is really what I enjoy. Um, but again, different changes supposedly as well. Your Trials of Osiris again being PvP, that's going to be more end game level um, activities for you as well. But it's not quite that big jump that for me to probably get me absolutely engrossed once again for months on end. I would like to see another big drop of content. This is also the convoluted way. I don't really know. It's not really dictated because this year's very different to what last year's, where we had the two expansion packs. Pardon me, dropped to us within the first year. We are 7 months down the line and actually haven't seen a true expansion to the game this year. But supposedly this is what the idea was, that the fact that the Eververse, the online trading sort of what do you call it, microtransactions, is necessarily going to fund the game for the next few expansions. So I don't know if we're necessarily seeing that. Possibly we could see cheaper expansions out of this. So people were a bit salty knowing that, say, for what you paid for the Dark Below and what you paid for House of Wolves altogether, I think they were £20 each, or if you did this season pass, it could have been £30. Um, it just didn't reflect true value for money in that regard. But hopefully now that Bungie's been funded through like your emotes, I don't know if they sold shaders for the Eververse, but the main thing being the emotes, which you probably see me a few times doing the boo scary thing when Halloween came out. Hopefully things like that has funded that to possibly either help reduce costs. So if that means that at a lesser cost, people can actually get into Destiny and do the end game at a cheaper rate. I mean, that's a good thing in overall if you can do it. I mean, you kind of already kind of paid for it through the microtransactions in that regard, but say I'm not a huge lover of doing a lot of microtransactions altogether, but we'll see. But hopefully that's either cheaper, but it seems to be probably pushing along the lines that for those who are looking for that new end game, for that new story to have, absolute investment in characters and just general story arc, it looks like it's going to be pushing towards having the actual next disc-based game being Destiny 2, supposedly, which they had announced being it was early 2017. So for us, that's say when I say early 2017, that's any time before the 31st of March next year. So we're probably still about a year away from having Destiny at the latest. But that's hopefully going to just give us that bit more depth to what Destiny is. So gameplay mechanics side of things has it hands down already in place, so they don't really need to change much for that. It's just, for me personally, story-based content is really where it excels and what it needs to excel at to keep my attention for a lot longer. Hopefully, with Destiny 2, we should hopefully lose some of the limitations that we necessarily have with the game, as at the time when it did release in 2014, we were still kind of in that funny transition period where we did still have Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 as probably, well, as they are still the majority consoles that are on the market because they've obviously been out longer, but a lot of people hadn't necessarily made the jump towards having your PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones. So hopefully we're going to tail off any sort of limitations that we have with the older consoles, but I don't necessarily know what that may push us towards in regards to making Destiny better only being on PS4 and Xbox One. I don't know, maybe possibly see that on PC as well. I'm kind of hoping, this is kind of now the PC nerd popping out in me now, that a lot of games being 60 frames a second I'm playing, I think that almost feels like it has to be a necessity for Destiny now. It's not going to be a big deal if it's not, but I mean, just to have an absolutely smoother frame rate to see the animations work a lot better on these enemies would be, I think, really cool to see. But I mean, beyond that, it's probably just performance enhancing really to what they can actually do. So better frame rates, less glitchy, probably more enemies on the screen, better detail within the world. Just really see where that potentially would go from there. So, Destiny will be happening. Hopefully will be happening a lot more on the channel. Supposedly also they might be changing a few things in regards to the Nightfall Strike, which that was a weekly series that we used to upload with me and my friend Richard. I'd like to try and get back into that again, bring you some variety as opposed to just doing my Subject Sundays recently. But we're not terribly far away. We're just about 2 weeks or so away from Ratchet and Clank, which I'm planning to do a Let's Play series. So, you're still listening. Hopefully you are. I would like you to like the video if you like my video. Leave a comment if you would like to leave some feedback. I'd greatly appreciate it. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I shall see you all later. Take care.